So let's go ahead and get started. I'm Mike Gazowski. I'm a consulting partner here at Echo Technology Solutions, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our Echo Cybersecurity Simplified. This is, we're excited. This is the first webinar we've had in a while, and first one we've had on cybersecurity. So we see we've got a fairly diverse audience out there. I've got everyone on mute right now, which if you've got a question, we've got the Zoom chat open, and please go ahead and put a question in there. We'll have time for Q&A after we kind of run through the presentation here, and hopefully we'll have something here for everybody with regards to cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is a lot of stuff in the news, and we'd certainly make this really scary, but the object isn't to do that. The news is out there to do that for us. We really want to make this demystify cybersecurity and make this very understandable to everyone. We want to have all right. Slight technical glitch there. Get the right screen share up, which will be great. So we want to demystify cybersecurity, and what exactly has changed? Why has this suddenly become a big issue now? There were I think at last count somewhere between 20 and 60 major breaches last year, and why is this such a huge concern? What exactly are the risks? What is at risk to your organization, and more appropriately, what actions should you take to protect yourself and your organization in this changing cyber landscape? And then, as I said, we'll have time for Q&A afterwards. So to start out with, let's get some basic definitions out of the way. So at its core, you're really protecting kind of lifeblood of your organization, the data and the software that data lives in, and the hardware that data runs on networks. You want to protect it from theft, alteration, disruption, misdirection, abuse, any one of a number of things that can come in from the internet. These attacks are usually deliberate. They can be undirected, and this would be phishing with a PH. And this is usually via email, may go out to a bunch of different people. Hey, it's your bank. Can you click on this link, please? Something to this extent. The other type of attack is again deliberate, but much more targeted either at the organization or the individual in the organization. And this is spear phishing, again with a PH. And this may be via email, might have phone or some other component to it, and is really trying to go after specific stuff with your organization. So let's look a couple of different quotes that are out there. First one was from a really good article in Forbes last October, and I read it, and that's a great article. And then, of course, I'm rereading it going, if I wasn't really kind of an IT practitioner, would I understand this? And this one line kind of stuck out. What exactly is an attack surface? And what business models are growing, and exactly why are these attack surfaces proliferating because of the business models or with the business model? It's really kind of technobabble, I would say, at its finest. Another one is courtesy of large Bangalore-based IT consultancy Wipro, and again, now we have attack vectors. So are these the same as attack surfaces? Again, they're proliferating, but now they're proliferating faster than what? And what are the security approaches, much less the traditional enterprise security approaches? And why can't they keep up with these vectors or attack surfaces or whatever is out there? Let's use an analogy. Let's say your organization is a house, and inside that house you've got a bag with $1 million in it. This bag represents your funds, your source of funds, donations, endowments, things you use to make your organization or business work, investments, donors, and anything that's out there. And you've got that safe locked up inside your house. You've got the doors. These represent your networks and systems used to do your job. Windows represent the applications and data that are out there, and there you are inside the house, and everything's pretty easy to take care of, and the bad guys are out there, and all they can do is go through the windows and doors to get to your bag of money that's hidden somewhere safely in the house. So doors, windows, these are attack surfaces. So over time, bad guys come there, but they still have the same basic windows and doors to get through, but you go ahead and add some more laptops, add a website, add new VoIP phone system, you've got more doors, you start adding some more cloud-based applications, or maybe it's a phone-based application, or replacing existing apps with new apps. Now you've got more attack surfaces, more windows, more doors. You've got more people in your organization, both inside your house and outside your house. And at the same time, the bad guys have proliferated too. The vectors are the paths they're taking to the windows and doors. The doors and the windows, again, are those attack surfaces, and everything's kind of out in the open now. And maybe that money that was really well hidden before isn't quite as well hidden as it used to be. So if you're looking at, it used to be a saying of security by obscurity. So I'll start with a story. We've got a client, and a while ago, a Wi-Fi access point showed up across the street from the building. It had the same name as their organization. And a number of people logged into this false access point and gave credentials, and eventually it was discovered and taken down, but credentials went out. Passwords may or may not have changed. In the meantime, a message was sent from an executive to someone in management talking about a big project that was going on and need for data, and ask for some data and then for more data, then a list of all the employee data, and then employee bank accounts started getting hacked and money taken. So there was no executive email. This was all a ruse, and this was an example of a successful phish attack. And more appropriately, a spearfish attack. Echo gets attacked literally daily. At the end, if you've got funds, donors, employees, volunteers, the funds don't have to be large. They can be small. You know, you'd be surprised how far funds can go in you know, former Eastern Bloc or for other places. All these things represent targets that potentially could be at risk. If you're looking at this, you know, the liability and legal costs can start mounting. Your organization slows down and becomes paralyzed as you're looking to kind of block the attack midstream. In the meantime, you're losing revenue. You've potentially lost the trust and goodwill of volunteers, confidence of other constituents. What is the cost of that? How much does it cost to replace a donor? How much does it cost to replace an employee in the San Francisco Bay Area? And these can be expensive items. At the end of the day, you're looking at risk and controlling risk, and the reality is that cybersecurity threats really just pose a risk like any other business risk. So learning to control those and deal with the risks, and kind of taking the cybersecurity component out of those risks just makes it that much easier to deal with. So I like to use a model. It's the CIA model, and it's not that CIA. So in general, is your sensitive data protected? Is a valuable data safe? Is data confidentiality maintained? Are your systems and data usable? Is the data correct? Is data integrity intact? Are the systems there? Is the data there when you need to use it? If you're inside your building, if you're out in the field, can you access that data? Can you recover quickly when things do break, when you do have a data breach? Is the data available? The same model, and more appropriately, actions you do to protect things against this model also apply to a bunch of other IT threats and risks. And these aren't necessarily cybersecurity based, but more general IT risks. So bad software happens, employees make mistakes, buildings burn, they get robbed. We live in the Bay Area, we're waiting for the big one they hit. Floods happen, you name it, a number of things can happen out there. And each one of these threats can be categorized as something that affects availability, data integrity, or data confidentiality. And whatever investments you make to protect against cybersecurity also help mitigate the risks in these other areas as well. So your investment in cybersecurity will pay off in other ways. So the FBI provide us with a nice clean graphic that I've gone in and modified. They arrested a group called Fin7 last year that had operated for a number of years and had collected many millions of credit cards and stuff. But the story is kind of the same, and this will sound real similar to a previous story. The first step that they would do is identify the target, and they were looking for targets with lots of transactions, so like point of sale or stuff, but it literally could be if you've got money or some source of funds, you're probably a target. They would start grooming a target, and the grooming could be as easy as an email from the bank, or it could be kind of a more elaborate ruse, but some way to get you to let down your guard, and they would gain your trust and get you to open up an email with malware. That at which point within minutes or maybe a week or so, they would have all your data, your networks, servers all mapped out, and know where your data lives. So at which point now the monetization begins. So it's either as simple as just grabbing the cash and taking off, or if you've got a lot of nice data out there, taking that data and selling it, or in the case of something like City of Atlanta last year, holding systems for ransom and extorting payments that way. So some way they're going through these series of steps and eventually monetizing what data they have. There was a real big name study that came out late last year, about 90 pages, hundreds of companies surveyed, and it was interesting the fact that it took on the average 253 days for a cyber attack to be identified and contained. So 8 months is kind of the average, and this is kind of across the globe. So not necessarily applies in all situations, but let's just say that these aren't things that you can contain overnight in most cases. It came down to 3 items. The first one being employee training. So making sure that people are aware of the risks, having an incident response team, and using data encryption, everywhere you can. These were the top 3 items. Of course, there were many other things they would sell you as far as services go, but it really came down to some really fundamental things. So let's get on to the actions and really talk about specifics, what you can do. Heather Adkins, the head of Google Information Security and Privacy, was on CNBC a couple of weeks ago and said things have grown and changed so much, but really so much of what we do has stayed the same or is based on very well-known and used concepts. Doing these well-known basics can still go a long way in being more secure. To paraphrase Heather, attacks and the methods are still the same as they were in the 1980s, and the best rules look for individuals and organizations looking to secure their data are the classics. Make sure all your basics are there. Check them. Assume you're going to be successfully attacked, and the preparation and preventive measures you take are going to lessen the damage from that attack. So let's start looking at this action list. Going back to the big name study, you want to do some education. So start off and build awareness and buy-in. Train your employees, your board members, other stakeholders on cyber attacks, the methods and the risks. What can happen? How to identify grooming and phishing attacks. Use this awareness to leverage to get support from board members and management, as well as all the employees, and start looking for the easy holes that people know are there or can easily see, and start identifying and plugging those holes and start making fixes immediately. In the meantime, go back out and get a cybersecurity assessment from a trusted third party. It doesn't have to be a massive, deep penetration test. It can be, kind of, again, looking at the basics and making sure everything is kind of up to snuff, looking for issues that may have been missed through your prioritization, and looking for those easy holes, and just find more holes and start plugging them, and then just keep repeating this process. Find more things to train on, and kind of drill this awareness in, so it becomes second nature to everybody involved. So let's raise the ante. This big name study talked about an incident response team. Let's talk about an incident response plan. This plan should name the team, but you really want to make it role-based. Use titles, have alternates. Try to avoid naming specific individuals, or at least if you do name them, have multiple individuals in case somebody's not available or someone leaves. Keep the plan simple. Start off general, and just kind of get the framework of that plan in place. Don't go into every specific type of case that you might encounter, but just kind of what things that you're going to do in the case of an emergency. Assume that the plan will change over time. In fact, you want it to change over time, and as you discover new things, add to the plan. And practice, ingrain this into the culture, ingrain this into your operations, make it second nature. So when something does happen, this isn't the first time that you've ever looked at your response plan. There are a number of tools that you've you deploy as part of IT, investments you make. Backups are kind of a key component. Incorporate backups as an example into this plan. How you can run off backups, how you can use this data that exists in backups to replace data that may have been damaged or altered or stolen during an attack. And like with any plan, the idea is to keep cool, calm, and collected. Stay on plan. Trust your plan. Don't panic. Just work through the plan and let the team perform what they need to keep your incident in control. So, as an IT professional, my perspective is a little jaded, but data is your organization. Your data is a core component of your organization and organization's value. Encrypt disks, encrypt application data, encrypt your networks, encrypt Wi-Fi networks, encrypt VPN tunnels, encrypt backups, encrypt everything. Just if encryption is there, turn it on. Whenever you buy software, hardware, make sure it has an encryption option, and always make sure that it's turned on. The backups that you're taking, put them in a safe place, put them in an accessible place. And today that place is the cloud. Cloud backups are more cost effective than ever, better options than they ever have been. They're remote and protected, more so than almost any other type of backup you can take. And your backup data should contain clean data, pre-breach copies of your data. So if something happens, you can always fall back to those backups. That act of falling back to the backups, and if you can actually operate off of that backup data, and that might include clean copies of your applications and potentially clean copies of your systems, that's a disaster recovery plan. You've leveraged your backup, something you're just doing because you have to, and you're now using that to accomplish something bigger and having a disaster recovery plan, which in turn helps protect you from cybersecurity threats. So these are all, you're using this investment and really making this work for you. Lastly, and again, we kind of talked about this, make sure all these protections are put into your standard operating procedure. You want to use as many of these tools on a daily basis. That way you know they're going to work when you really need them. And at the same point, you're making this investment, use the investment, make that investment work for you. You use the backup data in other unique and interesting ways, whether that's through report writing or other tools, but use these investments out there and make sure that the data that you're going to count on when things happen is actually usable and workable. So good systems hygiene really starts with antivirus protection. This is in my view almost a given. If you go out there, there's probably, I can Google and probably pull up 20 different reviews on antivirus software, and in these 20 reviews, there's probably going to be about 5 or 6 different packages that show up in pretty much every review. Those 5 or 6 are probably the ones that you should be considering. At Echo, we use WebRoot, very solid package. We also couple that with Mimecast, which will keep malware at bay and keep it from actually entering the network. So again, kind of two-factor, 2 layers of protection to keep malware out. The whether it's your software and applications or systems, or cell phones. There are security fixes and enhancements that are coming out all the time. Microsoft has their Patch Tuesday. You look up on your iPhone or your Droid device, you'll see all the apps that are getting patched on a regular basis. Keep these patches up to date, and any security enhancements that are out there, they'll be applied. Get into a regular schedule or cadence for keeping these patches up to date. And at the same point, keep informed as far as what threats and what vulnerabilities might exist in your software, but also what your vendors are doing with their products, and any directions they're doing to enhance security in the products. Lastly, talking about older systems and software, typical system and software lifecycle these days is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. I've got a picture of Windows 7 because we're still seeing Windows 7 out in the field. Even though that goes away, going back to those vendor announcements, you want to look for key phrases like end of sales, end of availability, end of life, end of support. If you see these in the vendor announcements, you know that that software or that hardware is going to go away, and you really need to replace it with something newer and better and faster. And while you're doing that, look for areas where you might have new needs for resiliency or redundancy. So if there's a single point, a single firewall, a single network switch, a single application that is out there and is vulnerable, replace it with a fail-safe. Have another layer of redundancy there. And remember, as you add software and hardware to your network, you're adding more doors and windows to your house. Be wise about how you're doing that, and make sure that you're considering cybersecurity as part of that. So we start looking at identity, and identity really starts off with passwords. So never reuse a password. So make each password unique, and moreover, most browsers or systems have a way of auto-generating these really long and complicated passwords. Just use the auto-generated passwords. Make it easy on yourself, and that way you've got this long password that's out there. Now, of course, those are difficult to keep track of. So you really want to use some type of single sign-on system. So Echo uses Okta. I will point out that a couple days ago, security flaws were reported in a bunch of different single sign-on packages, big name single sign-on packages. Okta wasn't among them. So that's good. Okta also has multi-factor authentication. So what that does is it sends a token or a request to another device to say, is this really you? Are you really logging on? So now you're no longer just that password, you're that password and that response to that question. Also with multi-factor authentications, banks and other financial institutions offer some type of multi-factor authentication. Turn that on. Some products like Apple have multi-factor authentication built in. Turn that on. And then in the case of someone requesting information, pick up the phone, call them, and say, are you really asking me for this information? Is this really you? And if it is, then maybe talk about how to securely send that information and not potentially expose stuff or what's really needed. And kind of along those lines, anytime you have data that's out there, anytime you have a new system with again, important or confidential data, limit your exposure and risk by limiting the people who have access to it. So best practices are your friend. So, you know, best of breed, best practices, you know, use systems that other people have used or rated and are known to have good cybersecurity. In fact, going back to system selection, your decision making and selection criteria should have cybersecurity as one of your top criteria when you're looking at either IT decisions or business decisions in general, for that matter. Talk is cheap. I mean, literally, talk is cheap. So talk to everybody. What are they doing? What are your vendors doing? What are other people in your line of business doing? Are they happy with their security? Have they had issues? What issues are they having? How have they corrected them? What's going on in industry forums? And really just keep engaged in this conversation and as much as any other facet of your business. And probably most importantly, as a small organization, as most of us belong to, you don't necessarily have all the resources available to do everything on your own. Go out and seek help. Find a trusted partner, whether that's Echo or somebody else. Find a partner that you can use, leverage their wealth and depth of experience, and when you need to go out, and whether that's tracking end of life and end of support on your products, or making sure your patch cadence is up to date, or making sure that you have no single point of failure, and what training and assessments need to be done. So at this point, let's go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions. And see if I can throw them into the chat.
Yeah. You got a voice. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of hoping they even responded. Just get some.
What's too bad? I mean, I thought the one that was too bad. Sorry.
Okay. So, okay, I don't see any questions. So we'll be sending an evaluation out here soon. Please fill that out. My contact information is up in the chat, so you can grab that. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning. And we will be posting this up on our website, so if you want to go back and hear this later, it will be up there. If you have any other questions or need some more information, please go ahead and send me an email, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much.